Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf, and I am back with the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew, which we began reading and interpreting or analyzing yesterday. So we are now at chapter 5. We're about to get to the Sermon on the Mount. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in yesterday or who watched the video subsequently. Because I've had so many lovely, supportive, welcoming responses to this project, to this undertaking of reading the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew and interpreting it from the Hebrew. And I think like 25,000 views at this point, which is quite a lot for an archaic document in a, mostly or until recently dead language. So just to remind everyone or to update everyone who wasn't with us yesterday, this text is a 14th century text from the pen or from the papers of a Jewish philosopher, essentially Evan Bohan, the touchstone. The author is Shem Tov ben Yitzchak ben Shaprut, and he was born in Toledo in Castilla in the middle of the 14th century. And this translation is by the late professor of religion at the University of Georgia, George Howard, who did most of the initial scholarly work on this text. And later today, I am absolutely thrilled to be interviewing Nehemiah Gordon, who wrote this really important book, The Hebrew Yeshua versus the Greek Jesus, New Light on the Seat of Moses, from Shem Tov's Hebrew Matthew. So he expands on the scholarly work that George Howard did with this Hebrew text. And Nehemiah Gordon makes the case, which, as you know, if you listened to yesterday, I thoroughly agree with, now that I've read this in Hebrew, that it's very possible that this text derives from or may actually be or descend from an original Hebrew gospel closer to the time of Jesus. I'm being cut off there. I hope that doesn't happen again. Early church fathers mentioned that Matthew was written in Hebrew, notably Irenaeus. But also, Nehemiah Gordon points out that there are multiple puns and word plays in the Hebrew that would be virtually, I don't know if he says virtually impossible. He certainly says they argue for an original composition in Hebrew that was later translated or subsequently translated into Greek or into Aramaic. And I've got to say, and I said this yesterday, now that I've read it, I've identified at least 30 sophisticated puns and word plays, like very sophisticated. We ran into 2 of them yesterday. And again, as a student of literature, I'm not a theologian. It is inconceivable to me, it's baffling to me how you could take the Greek and translate it into Hebrew and you would just happen to have these intricate word plays. The 2 examples we came up with yesterday were Yeshu's name, Yeshua, Yehoshia. It's a play on words. It's a play on the verb to save, to rescue, to redeem. And we also talked about wilderness, arava, and locusts, arabe, which literally look like synonyms in the Hebrew, because remember, the Hebrew doesn't have punctuation. Punctuation can be added, and in modern Hebrew, it's often added, so you know exactly what you're reading. But those 2 words are like visual puns, locusts and wilderness. And locust and wilderness don't really bear any relationship to each other and seem kind of random, in the way that they're mentioned in the description of what Yochanan, John, the ritual washer, which is translated by later Christian translators as Baptist, what he was eating. That's where the context of that pun. So those are just two examples, and there are more to come. But as I said yesterday, I'm so intrigued by this gospel because the wording of it allows people who are not Christian to have a relationship to Yeshu. As I said yesterday, you might think that's not good. I think it's good, and the other thing is that it just stands to reason to me intuitively. These were a bunch of Jews in Judea. They listened to Hebrew every Saturday in the Beit Knesset, in the synagogues, because you read the Torah every Saturday, and also the tradition of people, not just rabbis, but people, men, but just ordinary men, reading Torah, arguing about Torah, commenting on the Torah, debating the meaning, goes back ever since there's been Torah. And this is something that's really important to understand, I think, because many people online have been saying to me, how dare you leave the analysis of the Gospels or of sacred texts, or what may be sacred texts, to theologians, to people who have gone to seminary. And honestly, respectfully, in the Jewish tradition, that's just not that's not a set of presumptions that we have in the same way, because everyone is supposed to read the Torah and argue about it, or debate it, or analyze it, or present their opinion, doresh. And in the past, it was men were commanded to, but women were not forbidden. And so women also now are welcome to, in most traditions, to debate, read, argue, discern for themselves. There is no middleman in analyzing sacred scripture for Jews. So, rabbis are helpful, but they're not the source of the true interpretation. In most traditions. Some traditions, yes, but in many, many traditions, you just do your best with the text, and you can have a debate about it. So that's my little précis, and now we'll just jump right in with chapter 5. And you remember that Yeshua is now, he's been baptized by Yochanan, John HaMatbil, the ritual washer, and he is now starting to, it's not preach, as you called from yesterday in Hebrew, it's doresh, which is the same root as midrash, which is a commentary on the Torah, but certainly commentary, analysis of sacred texts. And he's going all over, and notably to Galilee, and to the cities around Galilee, and he's becoming quite famous. The last chapter said people are coming to follow where he's going and to listen to him do this analysis of the sacred texts from Kapoli and Galilee, from Yerushalayim, Yehuda, and across the Jordan, which is really far, especially at a time before automobiles and planes. People were really coming from, the whole region through word of mouth. And the last section ended with him, Rofe, people. And what did that mean, as you recall, or those of you who weren't with us? It certainly means that he was healing people, but lerofe and refuah is medicine or healing. Rofe is a doctor. So in Hebrew, the healing also had the additional meaning of doctoring, right? And I made the point in my last reading that this is a different kind of resonance than just, oh, you're healed, right? It suggests more of a relationship, and also more of a intimacy over time with the sick people, or the people who are mentally ill, the people possessed by, could be demons in one translation, shedim, but it could be ghosts, as you recall. So a really good, powerful description of mental illness. And it also, I made the point yesterday, Le Rofe suggests that he's not just doing a magical thing, right? He's not just working miracles. The word Le Rofe also suggests that he's demonstrating to human beings how to be in relationship with sick people, be in relationship with mentally ill people, mentally troubled people. people who are paralyzed, people who are bleeding, and so on. So that's just a few notes from our last reading, and let's just jump right in. And as I did last time, I'm reading George Howard's version with my own edits, because sometimes I feel George Howard, bless him, may his memory be a blessing, as we say, was a little metaphorical when it's clearer if you are really literal, or a little bit of Christian sort of belated theological language kind of crept into the translation where the Hebrew doesn't really provide that. And again, that's why I'm so interested in this Hebrew text, because, as I said last time, I want to know what Jesus said, and I want to know what Jesus said before Rome, before Constantinople, before the Council of Nicaea, before Paul, before all the Christian lineage, no disrespect to it, interpreted what he said, or translated what he said into structures that make sense in Christianity. I just want to know, kind of the raw language of Yeshu. And it is possible that this is a keyhole into that. Again, the dating is under debate. I'm not claiming this is an original, first century AD text, but the glimpses into the language of his context, which includes the concepts of his context, are fascinating to me. All right. It came to pass after this, when he saw the crowds, and remember, they're not crowds, they're hachavrot, which means communities of friends, that he went upon the mountain and sat down. Then it's translated disciples, but it's not disciples, although that's the word that the Greek uses. It's talmidav. And a talmid is a student, plain and simple. The root is lamad, lilmod, to learn. So it's people who were learning from him. And I think that's really important for a lot of reasons. Because when I read the translations into English from the Greek, and it's disciples, his disciples, his disciples, it suggests people who are already in some sort of ecclesiastical relationship or official theological relationship to Yeshu. Whereas in the Hebrew, it's his students. And anyone can be a student, right? It can be kids, it can be women, it can be slaves, it can be illiterate people. Anyone can be a student. They're learning from him. That's the root of the word. Then his students came to him, and he opened his mouth and spoke to them, saying, Ashrei shiflei ruach shelahem malchut shamayim. So this is translated, blessed are the humble of spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. But actually, asher does not really mean blessed in Hebrew. Baruch means blessed. And it's the Sermon on the Mount does not say Baruch, Baruch, Baruch. It says Ashrei, Ashrei, Ashrei. And this phrasing is right from the Hebrew Bible, where lots of people are Asher or Asherim. There's a prayer we still sing, Ashrei yoshvei beitecha od nahalel chasela, meaning happy are those who sit in your houses, right? Fortunate are they. So in Hebrew, what the Sermon on the Mount is saying, what Yeshua is saying is he's identifying who is lucky, who's fortunate. Secondary meaning could be blessed, but it's really not Baruch. It's not. It's fortunate, happy, wealthy, almost, right? Ashrei, happy, fortunate are the humble of spirit, and again, ruach is spirit and wind. For theirs is the kingdom of the skies. Remember, shamayim is both heaven in the context, heavens, and also literally skies. Happy are those who wait, for they will be comforted. Happy are the meek. It's literally ha'oni anuyim, which is poor, for they shall inherit the land. It's often translated the earth, and here it's translated earth. But remember, this is first century Judea. They didn't know about the earth, right? There wasn't a cosmology of planets. There was land and sky. So it literally says they will inherit the land, haaretz, and that's the same root as Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, right? And land is so valuable in this culture because that's how you survive. So that's a really important thing to inherit. They'll inherit the land. And that's a radical thing to say because he's saying the poor will be rich, right? They'll be well looked after. They'll have enough to eat. Happy are the innocent of heart. Vehema yiru Elokim. It's so beautiful, for they will see God. And it's translated, they shall see God. And that suggests, like in the English translations from the Greek, what's going to happen to all of these blessed groups is implied that it will happen a long time from now, right? Eventually, or after they die, or after the resurrection. But Yeshu in the Hebrew isn't really positioning their happiness in some theological future or hermeneutical future, is the way I was taught to think about it when I studied the New Testament in college. He is really talking about a near future, like almost a present. They will see God, like tomorrow, you know. Blessed, happy are those who pursue peace, for they shall be called sons of God. So this is really interesting. Ashrei rodfei shalom. Happy are those who chase after peace. Shebnei Elokim yikreu. For the children, and banim can mean both sons and children, because of course, you know, male is used for male and female sometimes at that time. They'll be called the children of God. There's no article. So here again, remember I talked about how there was no article when Yeshu was called Son of God in the last few chapters. In the Hebrew, he's not yet called the Son of God. He may be later on. I don't recall that he is, but certainly he's called Son of God. But lots of people are called children of God, including those who pursue peace will be called children of God, sons of God. Okay, and that's really interesting. It suggests that sons of God, like Yeshu was an exemplary son of God, right? We saw the Holy Spirit come down in the form of like a dove, right? Not in the form of a dove in the Hebrew, but like a dove. And, you know, we heard the voice of God say, this is my son whom I love, my very, very beloved son. So there's no question, and I'm not trying to minimize, that Yeshu is a super, super special, clearly divinely ordained and highlighted and cherished and demonstrated to others son of God. But in the Hebrew, other people are also children of God in the exact same phrasing. And I think that's kind of beautiful. I don't think that's blasphemous at all, because it suggests that Yeshu came to kind of show us how to be better children of God, or like more aware children of God, right? And in one way, he's saying clearly, if you pursue peace, if you chase after peace, you'll be called children of God. You'll be called sons of God. Ashrei, happy are those who are, for a third pun, pursued for righteousness, for to them is the kingdom of the skies. And here you've got rodfei, radfu, nirdefim. Again, in two sentences, you've got two iterations of chasing after. And, you know, maybe you can do that Greek to Hebrew, but it's quite difficult. Happy are you when they pursue. Here you have it again. It's translated here persecute, but it's actually rodef, the third rodef, for righteousness, for to them is the kingdom of the skies. Happy are you when they pursue and revile you and say against you all kinds of evil and it's translated for my sake, but it's actually because of me, but speak falsely. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is very great in the skies, for thus they persecuted the prophets. But again, in Hebrew, it's radfu et hanevi'im. So you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4 iterations of rodef in like virtually 4 or 5 sentences. And in English, it's translated a bunch of different ways in these different sentences, but it's all the same word. Isn't that interesting? So basically, Yeshu is saying over and over and over, what should you chase? Even if they chase you, you should chase peace, right? And happy are you when they chase and revile you and say against you all kinds of evil because of me, but speak falsely. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is very great in the skies, for thus they chased the prophets, pursued the prophets. At that time, Yeshu said to his students, you are salt in the world. If the salt is neutralized in regard to its taste, with what will it be salted? It is fit for nothing, but to be cast outside, to be trampled underfoot. You are light in the world. And remember, in the Greek to English, that's usually translated, you are the light of the world. But he's saying, you are light in the world. And a city built upon a hill cannot be hidden. They do not light a lamp to place it in a hidden place where it cannot shine, but they place it upon a lampstand, menorah, right? You know what a menorah is, so that it might illuminate all the children of the house. Thus let your light shine before every man to show them your good deeds, which are praised and honored. It's translated glorified, but it's really honored, to your Father who is in the skies. At that time, Yeshu said to his disciples, do not think that I came to annul the Torah, but to fulfill it. So Greek to English, this is usually translated the law. But in Hebrew, it is the Torah. It's the 5 books of Moses. It's the Torah. Yeshu is saying, Jewish rabbi to his mostly Jewish students, don't think that I came to annul the Torah, but to fulfill it. And here you have a beautiful word. Be'etahi, at that time, Amar Yeshu said to Talmidav, to his students, Al techashavu, don't think, Shebati lehaper Torah, that I came to cancel the Torah, Ela lehashlim, but to make it whole. It's not even to fulfill it. Shalem is from the same root as shalom. Shalom means peace. Shalem is complete, perfect, whole. So he came, he's saying in Hebrew, to make the Torah whole. He's not saying he's starting a new religion, right? He's reforming and cleansing and purifying an existing religion, but he's definitely saying here, I came to make it complete. Be'emet, in truth, I say to you that until the skies and the earth and the land depart, Ki'ad Shemaim va'aretz. It actually doesn't say depart in the Hebrew. It just says until the skies and the earth. And in colloquial Hebrew, that implies they come to an end, right? Ot achat, not one letter, unekuda achat, or one punctuation mark, point, dot, really. Lo tevatel, not one letter or dot shall be abolished from the Torah or the prophets, mehat Torah o mehanevi'im, from the Torah or the prophets, because all will be fulfilled. And this word in Hebrew is not fulfilled leshalem, it's lehitkayem. And we talked about that beautiful word last time. It means to make exist. All will be made to exist. So he is thoroughly embracing the Torah here. Ve'asher ya'avor, and he who shall transgress one word of the commandments, of these commandments, and shall teach others, shall be called a vain person in the kingdom of the skies. But whoever upholds and teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of the skies. At that time, Yeshu said to his students, truly, I say to you, and when he says truly, it's be'emet, it's literally in truth, I say to you, if your righteousness is not greater than the Pharisees and the wise men, you shall not enter to the kingdom of the skies. Have you not heard what was said to those who came before? You shall not murder, and whoever murders is guilty, like obligated to a judgment of death. And I say to you, just want to note here, often in Greek to English translations, the transitions are, especially in these kinds of statements, this is what is in the Old Testament, but I say to you. And then, yes, she says something new, some new iteration. This is what the Old Testament says, but I say this to you. That's not what the Hebrew says. The Hebrew consistently says and. So in the Hebrew, in these moments, Yeshua is saying, that's what the commandments say, and I am adding this, or and I am interpreting or telling you to interpret it, your actions based on that in this way. Very different. And I say to you, he who angers his companion is guilty, obligated of judgment. He who calls his brother inferior shall be guilty of judgment before the congregation. He who calls him a fool is guilty of the fire of Gehenna. And if you should offer your gift at the altar and remember that you have a quarrel with your companion and he's complaining about you because of this matter, leave your gifts there before the altar and go to appease him first and afterwards offer your gifts. So what are these gifts, right? It's still a sacrificial religion. People still go up to the holy city of Jerusalem at least 3 times a year and offer sacrifices. Those are the gifts on the altar. And we read about that in Exodus, the instructions about that. But you've got this interesting play on words a little bit. Ve'im takriv korbancha lemizbeach, if you draw near with your korban, with your sacrifice, your gift, lemazabech, to the altar, v'taskir, and you remember shehaya lecha im chavercha din, that you have with your friend a judgment, and he's upset with you, from whatever thing, hine korbanecha sim, here your sacrifice place, lifnei hamazbeach, before the altar, velech lirtzuto, and go basically run to him kodem first, v'achar kach hakrev korbanecha. And after that, bring your sacrifice. And there's a little bit of a play of words there with korev, korban. And so he's basically, Yeshua is saying the most important thing is not making the sacrifice, the object, the sheep or the birds, the fowl, the doves that are slaughtered at the temple or on the altar at the Holy of Holies, the great temple in Jerusalem, which still existed at this time. But the most important thing is to be at peace with your relationships. That's what God cares about, right? First, get yourself in order with the people around you. Then go give God what God is technically asking for. So he's completely, I wouldn't say he's reversing the order of religious observance from the Old Testament, but he's definitely distilling it to not the externals, right? Not the symbols. He's basically saying God is not interested in your slaughtered sheep or in your slaughtered dove if you still are in a state of hostility with your friend or with your brother, or if you're in a condition of injustice that you need to fix. And that's what he's saying. Then Jesus deliver you to the judge, and this judge delivers you to the servant to put you in the prison. In truth, I say to you, you will not exit from there until you give the last pruta, the last tiny piece of money. Od means again or more. More, he said to them, you have heard what was said to those of long ago, and you shall not commit adultery. And here the translation is, but I say to you. That's one of those pivots that's not accurate. What he actually says is, and I say to you all that everyone who sees a woman, v'chamid ota, and he thinks she's adorable. It's not really covets. It's chamud is cute, v'chamid ota, and he likes her basically in a lusty, adoring way, has already committed adultery with her in his heart. And if your right eye seduces you, put it out and throw it away from you. And if your hand seduces you, cut her off. It is better for you to suffer the loss of one of your limbs than all of your body in Gehenna. And I just want to note at this time, the Jewish idea of hell is not as elaborate as the later Christian notions of hell. It really isn't. So there is a fire in Gehenna that Yeshua is saying you don't want to go there. This could happen to you. Gehenom is a valley, an actual place in Jerusalem, outside of Jerusalem, but it's also a metaphorical place. But it's much vaguer than the later Catholic or Miltonic or Dantesque hell of demons and pitchforks and eternal fire. There's definitely fire that is everlasting, and we'll get to that. But I just want to note it's not a nicer place, but it's not this very elaborated, eternally in hell with no salvation concept. It's a vaguer, punishing place for sure, but there's no set period of time. We'll get to the language for the period of time that you might be in the fire of Gehenna. It's le'olam, which could mean for the world, right? Or it could mean forever. And I'm not saying that to ease up on the moral guidance here. I'm just saying that it's just not the elaborate levels and forever and lost forever hell of later Catholic and Christian tradition. I'm not saying it's nicer. I'm just saying it's not that detailed, which, by the way, is very much like Greek ideas of Hades, which are kind of this shadowy place. You don't want to be stuck there, but it's a little bit ambiguous, right? Again, Yeshu said to his students, you have heard what was said to those of long ago, that everyone who leaves his wife and divorces her is to give her a bill of divorce, that is, libella repudio. And I say to you that everyone who leaves his wife is to give her a bill of divorce. But concerning adultery, he is one who commits adultery, and he who takes her commits adultery. So to me, as a feminist, this passage is often misread. And the focus is on the adultery. But it was very radical for Yeshu to say this at that time, because at that time in Judaic law and in Hebraic law, the punishment for women to be caught in adultery, especially unmarried women, was very severe. They were stoned to death. So it was, a patriarchal culture for sure. And so here Yeshu is basically saying you're both involved. You're like men, women, men have to take responsibility for this too. Extremely radical thing to say in treating women as more than chattel and treating men as having responsibilities to women beyond treating them as chattel and buying and selling them or seducing them and abandoning them. But concerning adultery, he is the one who commits adultery, and he who takes her commits adultery. Again, you have heard what was said of those of long ago, and the Hebrew is shene'emar likadmonim, that was said to those of a previous era, really, the first ones. You shall not swear by my name falsely, but you shall return to the Lord your oath. And I say to you, this is another place, it happens a lot. I won't say it every time, but over and over and over, this translation, and again, bless George Howard, I believe he's Christian, understandably. It's so ingrained to have that pivot of, but I say to you, it is, and I say to you. And I say to you, not to swear in vain in any matter, neither by the skies, because they are the throne of God, nor by the land, because it is the footstool of his feet, nor by Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, because it is the city of God, nor by your head, for you are not able to make one hair white or black. But let your words be yes, yes, and also no, no. Everything in addition to this is evil. Again, you have heard what is said in the Torah, an eye under an eye, not an eye for an eye, a tooth under a tooth. Let's take a look. Yep, that's what it says. Shenamar b'Torah, what was said in the Torah, ayin tachat ayin, an eye under an eye, shen tachat shen, tooth under tooth. I'm sure the implication is tooth for tooth. We read that in the Old Testament. And I say to you, do not repay evil for evil, but he who strikes your right cheek, provide for him the left. He who wishes to oppose you in judgment, and he who wishes to oppose you in judgment and to rob your shirt, leave to him your garment, your coat, literally. And he who asks you to walk with him 1,000 paces, go with him 2,000. To him who asks, give him, and from him who wishes to borrow from you, do not hold back. Again or more, Yeshu said to his students, you've heard what was said to those lekadmonim from long ago, from before, that you shall love the one who loves you and hate the one who hates you. And I say, not but, and I say to you all, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you and vex you, and pray for those who pursue you. Again, that word rodef, who chase you and put pressure on you. In order that you might be, again, lama'an, for the sake of tiyu b'nei avichem, you might be sons of your father, children of your father, sheba shamayim, who is in the skies, shemizrach shemesho, who shines his sun al tovim v'ra'im, on good and bad, umamtir al rashaim v'tzadikim, and causes it to rain on the cruel and the righteous. If ta'im tehavu ohavechem, if you love those who love you, eze sachar lechem, oh dear, I need to end the stream. Come on in. I'm just live, but I'll be with you in 5 minutes. All right. If you love those who love you, what reward to you? Hello, azei panim ohavim ohavehem. Do not the impudent love those who love them. Hayu atem tmihim, be you perfect, like pure, mature. Ke'asher tam avichem, as your father is perfect or pure, or tam, innocent almost, right? Hashmiru, and be careful. Hashmiru, be careful. Penta asu sadikatkam, beware, be careful lest you do your righteousness, work your righteousness, lifnei ha'adam, before men, lehalel etchem, to praise you. And that's the same root as hallelujah. Isn't that lovely? Lehalel etchem. V'im te'asu lo yiyeh lechem sachar. If you do the righteousness, just so that people praise you. You will have no reward or wages from your Father who is in the skies. And I will need to stop there because a friend has dropped by, but we'll pick up again probably later today. And at 4:30, I'm going to be interviewing live Nehemiah Gordon. So that's the Gospel of Matthew in the Hebrew, and we will pick up later on. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.